Welcome. Today I'm going to share a bit of Roald Dahl's world with you. Roald Dahl has written many classic books, but today I'm going to share three of his most well-known and beloved. The first being James and the Giant Peach. Now James Henry Trotter lives with his parents by the beach. He has a happy life. He's fulfilled. He's loved. He's not lonely. But then one day, an angry rhino escaped from the zoo and gobbled up his parents, leaving all their troubles behind. But James' troubles have just begun. He's now living with his horrible aunts Spiker and Sponge, and all they do is nag, nag, and nag. They treat him terribly, they make him a slave, they make him clean and chop wood, and he's so lonely, so cold, so sad, and so hungry. But one day, a mysterious man comes up to James with a little bag full of green crystals. He tells him how they're made, and then he tells James, you know what? These crystals will help your life become better. You follow my instructions, and everything will be great. But remember, you must use them all, because if you don't, they will find someone else and something else to help instead of you. So James is like, I can do that. I can handle this. I want to be happy. I don't want to be lonely anymore. So he takes off running back home. And what happens? He trips, spilling all the magic crystals into the ground. He loses every single one of them. What can he do now? Nothing. He just lost them all. But then suddenly, a giant peach begins to grow in the tree. A tree that has never produced a peach in years. And the peach just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it is the size of a house. James doesn't know what to do. But of course his aunts decide to use it as a moment to get money from the people. James is forbidden to look at the peach at all, to even touch it. But one night, he goes out. And he decides that he wants to spend time with the peach. And he does. But then, a little hole opens up at the bottom of the peach. And he's so curious. So what does he do? Well, I'll tell you. It was quite a large hole. The sort of thing an animal about the size of a fox might have made. James knelt down in front of it and poked his head and shoulders in. He crawled in. He kept on crawling. This isn't just a hole, he thought excitedly. It's a tunnel. The tunnel was damp and murky, and all around him there were the curious bittersweet smell of fresh peach. The floor was soggy under his knees. The walls were wet and sticky. The peach juice was dripping from the ceiling. James opened his mouth and caught some of it on his tongue. It was delicious. He was crawling uphill now, as though the tunnel was leading straight toward the very center of the gigantic fruit. Every few seconds he paused and took a bite out of the wall. The peach flesh was so sweet and juicy and marvelously refreshing. He crawled on for several more yards, and then suddenly, bang! The top of his head bumped into something extremely hard, blocking his way. He glanced up. In front of him, there was a solid wall that seemed at first as though it was made of wood. He touched it with his fingers. It certainly felt like wood, except that it was very jagged and full of deep grooves. Good heavens, he said. I know what this is. I've come to the stone in the middle of the peach. Then he noticed that there was a small door cut into the face of the peach stone. He gave a push. It swung open. He crawled through. And before he had time to glance up and see where he was, he heard a voice saying, Look who's here. And another one said, We've been waiting for you. And then the adventure for James Henry Trotter starts. Will his life continue to be sad and lonely? Or will this adventure change everything for him? You must read James and the Giant Peach to find out. The next story we're going to look at is Matilda. Matilda is a genius. She's so smart, she has read every book in the library by the time she was 4.5 years old. But her parents, her family, they treat her like she's an idiot. Her father is a crooked car salesman. Her mother just goes off and plays bingo every day. And her brother Michael, one day he'll be just like his dad. But Matilda knows she doesn't fit in. She wants her family to love her, but she knows they won't. So she spends all her time getting to know the people and the books that she loves to read. But she also decides, I think my father deserves a lesson for all the times he's been mean to me. So she teaches him a lesson. She glues his hat to his head. She turns his black hair blonde. Matilda knows that the meaner you are, the more you deserve to be punished. But when she goes to school and meets Miss Trunchbull, the evil headmistress of her school, she almost doesn't know what to do. What can she do to this woman? She's so mean, she's so big, she's so strong. She's done crazy things to all the kids. She puts them in a chokey, a closet that's full of jagged glass and nails where she makes you stand there all day. She's grabbed kids by the pigtails and flung them around because she doesn't like pigtails. She's made little boys eat giant pieces of chocolate cake because they ate her cake, supposedly. She grabbed kids up by their ears and made their ears stretch longer. She made kids stand in the corner on one foot because that was their punishment. She even tried to expel Matilda for something Matilda did not do. Matilda, she does not like being bullied for something she didn't do. But what makes matters worse is when Miss Trunchbull also bullies Miss Honey, the kind teacher who actually believes in Matilda. One day, she can't take it anymore. And Matilda, crazy things begin to happen. I'm telling you to shut up, Miss Trunchbull roared. If you don't shut up at once and sit down, I shall remove my belt and let you have it with the ends of that has the buckle. Slowly, Matilda sat down. Oh, the rottenness of it all, the unfairness. How dare they expel her for something she hadn't done? Matilda felt herself getting angrier and angrier and angrier, so unbearably angry that something was bound to explode inside of her very soon. The newt was still squirming in the tall glass of water. It looked horribly uncomfortable. The glass was not big enough for it. Matilda glared at Trunchbull. How she hated her. She glared at the glass with the newt in it. She longed to march up and grab the glass and tip the contents, newt and all over Trunchbull's head. She trembled to think what Miss Trunchbull would do to her if she did that. The Trunchbull was sitting behind the teacher's table, staring with a mixture of horror and fascination at the newt and wriggling in the glass. Matilda's eyes were also riveted on the glass. And now, quite slowly, there began to creep over Matilda a most extraordinary and peculiar feeling. It was mostly in the eyes. A feeling of electricity seemed to be gathering inside of them. Tip it, Matilda whispered. Tip it over. She saw the glass wobble. It actually tilted backwards a fraction of an inch, then righted itself again. She kept pushing at it with all those millions of invisible little arms and hands that were reaching out from her eyes, feeling the power that was inside them. Tip it, she whispered again. Tip it over. Once more the glass wobbled. She pushed harder still, willing her eyes to shoot out more power. And then, very slowly, so slowly she could hardly see it happening, the glass began to lean backwards, farther and farther backwards until it was balancing on just one edge of its base. And then it teetered over for a few seconds before finally toppling over and falling with a sharp tinkle onto the desktop. The water in it and the squirming newt splashed out all over Miss Trunchbull's enormous bosom. The headmistress let out a yell that must have rattled every window pane in the building, and for the second time in the last 5 minutes, she shot out of the chair like a rocket. The newt clutched desperately to the cotton smock where it covered the great chest, and there it clung with its little claw-like feet. The Trunchbull looked down and saw it, and she bellowed even louder, and with a swipe of her hand, she sent the creature flying across the classroom. It landed on the floor beside Lavender's desk, and very quickly she ducked down and picked it up and put it in her pencil box for another time. A newt, she decided, was a useful thing to have around. What did Matilda do? Can it work again? But now, she's decided that no one's going to bully her or Miss Honey, who is the teacher who believes in her. Matilda refused to be treated like this anymore. So what else will she do with her powers? You have to read Matilda to find out. And lastly, my favorite of the books, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Charlie Bucket is so poor. He lives with his parents and all his grandparents. They barely have any food. It's so cold and Charlie is so hungry. But you know what he wants more than anything? Chocolate. Oh, how he loves chocolate. He loves smelling it when he walks past that enormous chocolate factory on the way home. He can't help but to love chocolate, but he can only get it once a year on his birthday. But one day, things begin to change when Willy Wonka, the mysterious chocolatier, announced that he will be inviting 5 children into his factory after years of the doors being closed. He wants to give them a reward. He tells everybody that you will have to find my golden tickets to be admitted into my factory. 4 little kids find their tickets. And on the last day of the contest, Charlie finally finds his golden ticket where he will be introduced to the most famous chocolatier in the world and the chocolate factory that smells so good. But Willy Wonka is a curious man. He knows exactly what he's doing. He has a plan. And we're going to meet him in just a minute. Mr. Wonka was standing all alone just inside the open gates of the factory. And what an extraordinary little man he was. He had a black top hat on his head. He wore a tailcoat made of a beautiful plum-colored velvet. His trousers were bottle green. His gloves were pearly gray. And in one hand he carried a fine gold-topped walking cane. And oh, how clever he looked! How quick and sharp and full of life! He kept making quick little jerky movements with his head, cocking it this way and that, and taking in everything with those bright, twinkling eyes. He was like a squirrel in the quickness of his movements, like a quick, clever old squirrel from the park. Suddenly, he did a funny little skipping dance in the snow, and spread his arms wide, and he smiled at the 5 children who were clustered near the gates, and he called out, "Welcome, my little friends! Welcome to the factory!" His voice was high and fluttery. "Will you come forward one at a time, please?" he called out, "and bring your parents. Then show me your golden ticket and give me your name. Who's first?" The big fat boy stepped up. "I'm Augustus Gloop," he said. "Augustus!" cried Mr. Wonka, seizing his hand and pummeling it up and down with terrific force. "My dear boy, how good to see you! Delighted, charmed, overjoyed to have you with us. And these are your parents? How nice! Come in, come in! That's right, step through the gates." Mr. Wonka was clearly just as excited as everybody else. The next 2 children, Violet Beauregard and Mike TV, came forward. Veruca as well. And last of all, a small, nervous voice whispered, "Charlie Bucket." "Charlie!" cried Mr. Wonka. "Well, well, well, so there you are. You're the one who found the ticket only yesterday, aren't you?" "Yes, yes, I read all about it in the morning's papers. Just in time, my dear boy. I'm so glad, so happy for you. And this, your grandfather? Delighted to meet you, sir. Overjoyed, enraptured, enchanted. All right, excellent. Is everybody in now? 5 children? Yes. Good. Now will you please follow me? Our tour is about to begin, but do keep together. Please don't wander off by yourselves. I shouldn't like to lose any of you at this stage in the proceedings. Oh, dear me, no." What does Mr. Wonka have up his sleeve? You know, all the good children will be rewarded handsomely by Mr. Wonka. But what happens to the bad children? Read the book to find out. You know, each of these books have been adapted into movies. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has 2, specifically. Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory in 1971, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in 2005. Matilda and James and the Giant Peach were also made into movies in 1996. But the most interesting is that there are 2 movies for this book. Which one do you like the most? They're both kind of different from the book. Willy Wonka, you know, that one in 1971 is a little different from the book mostly. The music is not the same. There's only one song that's the same. But, you know, the interesting thing about the 2005 version is that all the songs in that movie are from the book. Because Roald Dahl writes his own music. Well, his own songs. And all those songs are in the movie. Just a little shorter. And another interesting thing is that in the book, every kid brings 2 parents, except for Charlie, who only brings his grandfather. But in the movies, they each only bring 1. It kind of really just depends on which one you prefer. In the Charlie and Chocolate Factory version with Johnny Depp, he plays him similar to the book, of being kind of energetic and having a high voice, whereas in the 1971 version with Gene Wilder, Mr. Wonka is more eccentric and quirky. It really just depends on what you like the most. I like them both. They're great movies, great adaptations, and this book is fantastic. All 3 of them are fantastic. And you can watch all 3 movies, and you can see for yourself which ones, you like the most, and which book you like the most. Most people like Matilda. Some people like James and the Giant Peach. And if you're like me, you like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you will enjoy. All these books have magic and wonder and such great wordplay. Roald Dahl knows what to do with words, especially songs. Both of these books have some really great songs in them that he wrote. They're very fun and entertaining. All the characters are great. You're going to love Charlie. You're going to love Mr. Wonka. You're going to love James and all his friends he meet. I won't spoil anything for you. And you'll love Matilda too. Very smart and precocious Matilda. And you'll love to read what she does to Miss Trunchbull and her parents. It is hilarious. These 3 books are so different but so similar that you'll love all 3 of them. I hope you enjoy this little bit of Roald Dahl's world.